right, so moving on quickly, it's time to start the startup competition. So to get things rolling, I'd first introduce our panel of judges. As I call you out, I'd request you to take a seat in the front, and then I'm going to hand over to Shruti to start introducing the startups, and we go into pitch mode. So our first judge is Mr. Rajul Garg. Rajul is a serial entrepreneur and investor. He was named as a top 10 angel investor in India by VC Circle in 2016. He's the founder of the largest credit card tech company in India, Pine Lab, and a co-founder of a large US-India tech company, Global Logic, which was sold in 2013. He's made some marquee investments like Shuttle, Nolarity, and Curify. Welcome, Rajul. Next up is Mr. Tarun Davda. Tarun is managing director of Matrix India. Prior to joining Matrix, Tarun was India country manager and board member at StepOut.com, which was acquired by Match.com. Before that, Tarun established BigRock.com, which was acquired by Endurance International. Welcome, Tarun. Next up is Bharti Jacob. Bharti is a co-founder and managing partner at Seed Fund. She has over 27 years of experience in venture investing, marketing, and financial services with Seed Fund, Infinity Ventures, and Lazard India. She has been the lead partner in diverse investments, including Redbus and Sportkida. Next up is Karthik Srivastava. Karthik is a co-founder and managing partner of Espada Investment Advisors. He currently serves on the board of Be Well Hospitals, SV Agri, Capital Float, and IQ Vision, amongst others. Prior to that, he was at Lightspeed Venture Partners, where he was a founding member of the India office. And last up, I'd like to again invite Professor Karthik Hosnagar. I've already introduced him, but for those of you who've walked in late, Karthik is a professor of technology and digital business at the Wharton School. His research areas are digital economy, and in particular, media, internet marketing, and e-commerce. Karthik was a co-founder of Yodel, has served on the advisory boards of Milo and Monetate, and is involved with other startups as either investor or board member. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Shruti, and we'll start with the first 5 startup pitches.
Thank you, Ayush. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 21st Wharton India Economic Forum 2017, an annual student-run India-centric conference that gives thought leaders a platform to discuss the opportunities present in India and the challenges that it needs to address. With its aim to promote entrepreneurship, for the last 3 years, the forum has been running a startup competition that features India-focused startups, and Young Turks is proud to partner them for the 4th time in a row. This year, 10 startups will battle it out for a prize money that sums up to $18,000 and will also receive mentorship from leading funds. It's now time to begin the competition. The rules are simple. Each startup gets 5 minutes to pitch their ideas to the jury, followed by a 5-minute jury round. We're also encouraging questions from the audience. So we'll be taking one question from the audience, and to post your question, you can log on to sli.do, and the code to join is 3333. You can see it on the screen, I think. So without further ado, let me call on the first finalist. First up, we have Rajasthan-based Karma Healthcare that is using technology to improve healthcare access in rural India. Please welcome on stage Jagdeep Gambhir. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Jagdeep, you will have 5 minutes, and your time starts now.
Hi, good afternoon. So there are about 800 million people living in rural India who have limited or no access to healthcare. There is data to show that 70% of India lives in villages, and of the people living in villages, 75% of India seeks this healthcare from a private provider. So let's take a step back and see who is the private provider here. Right? There is a huge shortage of doctors in India. India has probably 1/6 of the doctors that other developing countries in the world would have. So if I'm a rural villager sitting in a village in Rajasthan, or for that matter anywhere in India, I would go 100 kilometers to seek healthcare in a private hospital or a clinic, or I would seek healthcare from an unqualified and untrained provider. If 50% of people telling themselves as doctors in India do not even have any medical training. So what happens if you seek healthcare from these people? You had a mocktail of antibiotics and steroids, which could lead to serious health illnesses, and it impacts, from a health standpoint as well as from an economic standpoint. What rural people need is trusted healthcare, which is accessible, which is affordable, and which is nearer to their homes. What we do is we use digital connectivity to provide quality healthcare in rural India. It's essentially, we open a clinic in rural area. It's an assisted e-health model. There is a nurse. The nurse is typically a local nurse sitting from that same village. She would consult a patient, she would record a patient history and consult it to a range of doctors which we have, on our platform. As the picture shows, right? So we open e-doctor clinics. We have about, since 2014, we've treated 37,000 patients on our model. Key thing to note, it's a shared services model. What it means is that we are not hiring our own doctors. We are hiring doctors like what Uber does, right? There are doctors who are out there in the private market, in their clinics, in their hospitals, and we are connecting with them to provide healthcare. It's also an assisted e-health model. So unlike a smartphone-based model, there is a nurse which is in the clinic. So you have a human-based interaction. So when you go to a clinic, it's not an ATM, right? You actually meet a person who kind of then assists you in the healthcare. There is also technology, so I can predict diseases. We have predicted in certain clinics wherein we know that in one village there is a more incidence of malaria, whereas in the other village it is not, right? So when you have so much data for a patient and for a community digitally, you can make health outcomes more favorable. Just one story. This is you see this. So she walked into our clinic about 3 months ago. She had a hemoglobin of 1.9 when she came to our center. 1.9 is incompatible with life, right? We immediately found the hemoglobin is there. Hemoglobin is so low. We referred her because she's not a primary healthcare consult. Her husband was not even willing to give her blood. Our referral system, my own staff actually give them blood, and she is well and her kids go to school. We have been invited by the President of India to actually replicate and open a clinic in his adopted village in Haryana. We have treated 37,000 patients. Average ticket size or average transaction is about 140 rupees. We have a gross profitability about 23% that we have. Before demonetization, we were growing month on month 20%, every month. Our team has an experience of people working in the healthcare, in the rural healthcare space, as well as some very senior and qualified doctors. We have a team of about 37 people right now. Most of them are doctors and nurses, and then about five people on the management side. So what we believe is that digital technology has disrupted many business models across India. I think this is a disruption wherein you could actually use technology to provide healthcare to areas where it is very difficult for doctors to physically go. So that's what it is.
All right, jury, over to you. Questions, please.
So I guess I'll get it started. The problem you described is that the supply of doctors is not sufficient to meet the need that exists out there. And it seems to me that the better doctors are probably already overbooked. So as you scale, my question is, how are you going to sign up enough doctors? Because the problem itself arose because the doctors, there's just not enough doctors out there.
Right, so you're right. The way we look at it is there is a doctor market which is in the private space who actually sees these patients who actually come from the rural areas to them, right? So we are tapping those doctors and thereby making that the patients coming from a rural area to see the doctor, and it probably would take many times patient won't even come there, is to connect. But yes, the problem of doctor access in India remains. So India has to produce more doctors. It has to be done.
Two questions. So first one is, at some stage, do you feel that this is a transient phenomenon where, the patients at some stage will start becoming more mature, and what happened in, say, assisted retail, eventually all those consumers have moved through, starting to directly start talking to those doctors. So how do you think about that? And the second one is, at 140 rupees per sort of transaction, how do you keep the doctors incentivized? Because that seems too low if you're targeting doctors in the larger cities.
So it is, for the second question on 140, it is a city-specific model. So we are currently based in Udaipur, Rajasthan. So we look at what the doctors get paid in Udaipur, and we do that, right? When we moved in Haryana with the president, our price points are a little different. So, there is, we do a cost plus pricing essentially, how much we pay to a doctor, what is the medicine cost, kind of add a price and do that. We don't do a willingness to pay pricing yet. On the first question, sorry, what was the first? Okay, so I think if you look at the healthcare spectrum, right, there is one healthcare which is immediate, right, wherein, the smartphone-based healthcare comes in. The second is the assisted model. I don't think this is going to go away, which is a healthcare which you seek within 5 to 10 kilometers of your home. Then there is a third healthcare model wherein you go from 20 to 50 kilometers away from your home. That's when you need a physical doctor. That's where secondary, tertiary surgery comes in. And then further on, there is a tertiary care model, and there are obviously other technologies. So I don't think, even for the next 20 years, you will probably see people consulting for an acute diarrhea over a smartphone. Yeah, it would have happened by now. There are people, there is obviously enough technology. I think there is still space for assisted e-health. Where people will use non-assisted health is for education or for, immediate, kind of, but if you need a nurse, you need a nurse, right? Healthcare is about human beings, right, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I have a question. Can you talk through some of the demand side indicators? Like, for example, if you start in a local area, how does the 140 compare to others? Is there a line outside? Is there a supply constraint? What is the utilization like? What have you seen so far?
So I started it as a non-profit, because we thought that, these guys can't pay. But for the first 1 month, I did my own market research. I sat with the quack and I said, let me just observe what you do. And I found out that the average price that the quack was charging was 264 rupees to a patient. Because what happens is that when you go and visit a quack, you get a steroid or an IV drip, which is like a fluid that you go. So the price point, so these guys we think are poor and should be paying less. These guys are actually paying much more for their healthcare than what an urban educated consumer is, right? So if you provide quality healthcare, there is, we could increase our prices, further on. So margin is not a problem, equity is. That's okay.
Yeah, so great idea and how you executed on it. The question is precisely from where you were coming from. Is that when you go to the rural areas, right, you don't have the economies of scale and scope that you see in larger agglomerations. And therefore, you talked about the gross margin being 20% plus, but how do you, and you are a point of presence, right? You have to actually deploy resources. So if you take the unit, how do you perform from an economics perspective?
Right. So when we open a clinic, we particularly look for in a size of an addressable market for about 25,000 people, right? So when we see that, are there 25,000 people who come to a center for seeking healthcare in that village? If you look at how many people fall sick per year, if we treat about 14 patients per day, that is about 16% market share. So of all the people who are coming and seeking healthcare in the village, we would need to capture a 16% market to be able to treat them, right? We currently see on an average about 11 to 12 patients per day per center. There is obviously the key challenge is it's not economics, it's about telling a patient to not go and take a steroid and come and seek healthcare from a qualified doctor, right? The consumer is, at times not, they don't know that, at times healthcare is, right? So the challenge or the CAC is on educating the consumer that true healthcare is about going and showing to a doctor who's trained in a medical school versus not somebody who has, just seen a doctor giving out injections, right? So that's, so there is, on the economic standpoint, we have 9 clinics, 3 of them break even already. The market share would be 16%, right? That's what we need, and I think we probably will make a lot of money if we can get that, right?
And just to complete that, what's the investment on telemedicine and all of that percentage?
What's the
investment?
On the telemedicine piece? Okay, so
on the center.
Yeah, so most of the investment is actually on the software part. So, the technology that we have built kind of schedules, because it's a variable model. So, when a patient comes in, we have to see if the private doctor is free or not. So we have to kind of schedule, the pieces. we only use a digital stethoscope, which is a very high tech device per se. The others are blood pressure machines, which you will find in any other clinic, right? So the only cool digital product is a digital stethoscope. We don't. There are hardware devices which are available, which will probably allow you to do that, but they don't really work very well in rural. It's a lot of training that you require. So we just keep it very simple.
All right, Jury, thank you. Can we have the audience question? All right. Moving on. Thank you, Jagdeep. Thank you. A huge round of applause.